with that kind of introduction. Thank you very much, Kevin. It's a great pleasure to be here. Thank you very much for coming. It's been a long week, and you know, you had a choice of sessions to come to, and really appreciate you coming to ours today. Today, this session is really what the approach here is to help you think about this concept of digital transformation. It's a word that everybody's using. It's like DevOps and digital transformation and security, and you hear these terms, right? And I think one of the things that we have it in the vendor community, we have a little bit of an advantage, is that we get to talk to a lot of different customers, look at a lot of different situations, and you know, we get to sense kind of where the opportunities and the challenges are out there. What I'm always reminded of when I come to events like Share, and Share in particular, is that you may not necessarily have that advantage. You know, you're busy doing your job, right? Your inputs are what you may read, you know, on the internet, the meetings you have, and so on and so forth. And so what this session is designed is really a sort of experience, sort of transfer of I wouldn't say knowledge necessarily, but really it's a transfer of ideas and practices, and in particular best practices. So the issue is digital transformation. It's how businesses and organizations, whether it be state, local government, or commercial enterprises, really leveraging the power of digital technology. And it's more than just simply being on the web or, you know, doing a few transactions and those kinds of things. There's a much larger context. And the pendulum has swung. I mean, in the beginning, it was really about web technologies, and so the mainframe was over there somewhere. Well, what we're seeing very significantly is a shift back to the realization that the mainframe world, the Z in particular, has an enormous value to provide to that digital transformation journey. So today, it's really about sharing those concepts with you. I'm not the expert. Donovan's the expert, so I'm here to introduce Donovan Deakin. I'm in product marketing. Donovan is product management leader for our application modernization and digital transformation solution strategy. So with that, Donovan, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Russ. Thank you, everybody, for coming today. It's a beautiful winter day still, so a couple more weeks of spring, or one more week of spring, actually, so really exciting. I've been around in digital transformation, I guess you could say, for over 20 years. I started in host connectivity. I've worked on cloud solutions. So I've kind of seen things from both ends, and I think there's a lot to offer. And there's really been a lot of energy and excitement in some of the sessions that I've been in here in the last several days as well. So first, you know, what is digital transformation? What is it all about? And I think a lot of people, when they think digital transformation, they start thinking about it, and maybe this is the image they have. You know, it's a unicorn, it's rainbows, it's easy, beautiful, pretty, kind of fun. But in reality, you don't get to this. It's a journey. It's not a destination. And so, you know, digital transformation is the introduction. It's a mix of the digital commerce with the business. You're using technologies to transform your business, your organization, and you have an opportunity here. You're taking business processes, business models, and competencies, and then using technology to enable them. And then there's an imperative. You're trying to close the gap between what the digital users want and what your analog companies, your systems, can provide. And so closing that gap. And that gap can be for your users internally, as well as your business partners, your supply chain, as well as your customers as well on the outside. So there's an opportunity and there's an imperative here. And then what we're finding is there's constituencies out there that have systems of engagement they want to use. And there were systems of engagement that were obviously are new. And so how do you make the two meet? And that's the opportunity, is looking at how do you integrate the mainframe with your systems of engagement. So if we look back, I love history, I read a lot, I've studied a lot in school. If you look back, obviously Share was founded in 1955, so we could say maybe that's the beginning of time if we want to. And after that, there was a lot of change in information technology. We had the beginnings of the internet with ARPANET in the late 1960s. IBM introduced the Series 360. You started seeing the advance of mini computers, mid-range systems with Unix, and the S370. You had VM, VTAM coming about in the 70s. You had in the 80s the IBM PC came into the enterprise, into the business, and became a standard on the desktop, and that was very transformative. TCP/IP networks, TCP/IP was standardized, and then you had the continued evolution of the mainframe. You had DB2 come out in the 80s. In the 90s, things really exploded. World Wide Web, Tim Berners-Lee. We had Java. We started getting into more distributed code and systems. Linux. You had Microsoft.NET, and so you had a lot of change. And so the mainframe continues evolving. We had Unix system services. TCP/IP was really starting to take off. WebSphere was developed as a platform for building and distributing applications. And then in the 2000s, we started to see the cloud. It was 2006 when Amazon Web Services first became generally available. And since then, things have really taken off. And we saw the iPhone come out in 2007, and that really transformed mobile computing. And then, in the 2000s, the Z architecture, Z Linux came out, and the platform has continued to evolve and be at the center of things. And then lately, we've had tablets. We've had a lot around security, both innovation as well as regulation. And we've seen new ways of providing experiences for users with technologies like HTML5. And IBM has really put a lot of investment and focus in the cloud. And so that brings us to today. We have the Z series, very important, running the business in a lot of cases, a lot of different ways to get to it. People are still running mission-critical applications written in COBOL, still managing those and making changes along the way. And there's a lot of complexity now. You have lots of different infrastructure options and things in the enterprise, a lot of different clients, a lot of different experiences that are delivered on a daily basis, and you're trying to manage all of them. You're trying to manage external systems as well, and external users. And then cloud. How do I look at more effective ways of delivering my applications, whether it's through a private cloud or a public cloud, and how do I invest and make that work for my organization? And then really starting to look at the implementation of Internet of Things. How do I take all this data that's coming in? I want to use it, leverage it, provide the experiences and the services for my customers that they need, and manage that. So the environment has gone very complex. And as things have evolved, the mainframe has still been there, still been rock solid. One of my favorite stories I heard was in Fukushima during the earthquake. There was a mainframe that fell over on its side and it apparently kept working. So that shows what a robust platform it is. The same place had a bunch of x86 servers, and they were essentially destroyed. They weren't working anymore. So just a really rock solid platform for applications and running the business. So we look at digital transformation, and how do you start to think about it? How do you make this go forward in the organization? There's a lot to consider here. Security. Are you making sure that you may be providing experiences, you may be opening up access to new users? How are you making sure that that data is protected and the right people are getting access to it? You look at availability, making sure you're going to be making changes and trying new things, and how do you keep the plane flying while you're working on the engine? How do you manage that? And then the user experience. Who are you And then what does this impose on IT? So you're having to move faster than before. You're having to make changes more rapidly, make adjustments on the fly, and you're really trying to build for the future while preserving the present. And so it's really, starting to become more agile and more focused on making changes. So how do you achieve that? Well, I think one interesting article we saw in the last several years, Alan Zajac talked about bimodal IT. The idea being that you have certain systems you look at that are traditional and sequential, and you're trying to emphasize safety and accuracy, and then you're looking at other things where you have speed, where you need to be agile, you need to experiment, you need to try new things, kind of tinker with it a bit to find the right mix or the right experience. And so you're trying to manage both of these modes of IT at the same time and setting yourself up for doing that. So that's a key part of going forward here. And then we get opportunity and risk. So there's a lot of change that's happening. But I think the important thing to remember is that you can take an iterative approach. Take an approach where you're taking smaller steps at a time. You're not going to have a big bang and do it all at once. Look for the small things that you can do to build upon. You know, some people will look at an approach and they might look at their application and say, let's rewrite it, let's replace it. That has a lot of risk, a lot of cost to it. And that may not be a wise decision for a lot of organizations. Some have tried to do packaged application replacement, just go in and go out, buy a new packaged application. I had a former employer that took a multi-million-dollar write-down after the CRM implementation. It did not meet the expectations that we had. And so that can be very costly and very risky and disruptive to the business. So I look at, where's the opportunity? How can you seize the day? And I think every one of us in here in our organizations, we have that opportunity. As Russ was saying earlier, the mainframe sometimes in the past has been siloed and been off to the side. But it's often the center of the world when it comes to business and running a business. So how do you bring these two things together? Start to look at that opportunity. So you really start to look at modernization. It's not a destination, it's a journey. And so you're looking at an entire life cycle where you're making changes along the way. It doesn't happen just once. You start to look at what is the business value? How are you going to impact the business? How is this going to help your employees be more productive? How is this going to allow your customers to have the experience they need? Versus how much money am I going to save? And then how do you use what you have already? We don't have unlimited budgets, so how can we maximize what's already there? And so one of the things that we've been doing is looking at the mainframe and some of the research. And we're seeing that a lot of folks out there are continuing to maintain their applications. They're modernizing the applications. And this is all being driven by really looking at the business strategy, aligning their applications to it. Then they start to look at how to reduce costs and risk. How do we get web and mobile access to employees that maybe they're not working in a traditional office setting and they need to have access on the fly? How can we align our strategy and go forward? And so IT starts looking at this and looks at cloud and virtualization as ways to enable this. Perhaps Linux adoption for some of the applications. Modernization using .NET, Java, or REST APIs. Turning things that you're using already and allowing them to be consumed. modernization, infrastructure, modernization as well. So there's a lot of different approaches that you can take based on what your requirements are, what you're trying to solve, and what's your scope and time and budget that you have allotted for this. So if we look at user experience modernization, this is the simplest. And you have a lot of folks that might be doing this already. Maybe they've been doing this for some time. How many folks have applications that you expose through the terminal interface, 3270? How many folks have users that are using that interface? So that, they may have already been using things like quick pads, toolbars, hotspots, key mappings, and macros to automate routine tasks. It allows them to continue using the mainframe application that's there, but maybe provide specific enhancements that help their productivity and work with that. And so these are really simple changes to drive the user experience. You may see also the ability to modernize the user interface in terms of the look and the feel. Again, very superficial, but this allows for maybe younger users who are used to seeing a mouse-driven interface. It allows you to put a different look on it without making changes on the back end. Now, where the challenges with this approach can be for some organizations is managing it. You start to get macros and setting files out there and sprawl, and how do you manage that all? Perhaps you're moving to Windows 10, and you've got things all over the place. How do you manage and track that? That's been a challenge for some organizations. But again, that's a very effective way, and it's a very easy way to start. So that's one approach that a lot of people are doing already. I think the other thing is to look at is access. Who needs access? Where are they coming from? What are they trying to get to? What are they trying to do? What devices do they have? And then, obviously you look at security, but having that ability to deploy anywhere. When I first started in the workforce, I had a terminal on my desktop, and that was it. Now I have applications where I do things through the iPhone or my tablet. So there's a whole range of experiences and devices out there that you need to provide access for. And the users aren't just coming in from your network, they're coming from outside as well. So you need to really think through, what do they need access to, what's the bare minimum, and how do they get there? And then, and we also talk to organizations where there's the mainframe is a key part of the business, but we might also see other systems of record, other mid-range open systems in there as well. And so how does that impact your strategy as well, and what do you make available? Then another thing that's really exciting is integration modernization. And this can be through a number of ways. I've seen several great presentations talking about ZOS Connect and taking the ability to have subservices, kits, DB2, for example, have these subsystems, turn them into RESTful APIs that can then be consumed externally. Anybody here using ZOS Connect? Okay, so that's one way. a great way to start. And there's been a lot of great sessions this week on doing so. And then something we hear about a lot is security and privacy. How many folks are using TLS encryption for access to their mainframe? Maybe have a mandate only allow TLS for your business users, and folks outside the organization. So we got a few, okay? So I think encryption is a really good way to start. You know, yesterday in the keynote, they mentioned that some of the biggest problems that people have out there, if they're using encryption, they may be using single DES, which is no longer considered secure anymore. And so you see a lot of mandates out there for things like TLS 1.2, PCI DSS rules as of June 30th will require that, for example. So looking at making sure that you have that data in motion as well as the data at rest encrypted so that you're limiting who has access to it. And then authentication. Again, you're trying to look at the idea of least privilege. So looking at those users and their requirements, what do they need to get their job done? And then providing them only with that, with which they need to get the job done, and nothing else. That reduces your risk. And so how do you make sure that they authenticate and they're seeing what they're authorized to see? And then data masking. Are you exposing things outside of your organization that you shouldn't be? And so how do you mask that, whether it's in your application itself or maybe how you access it to make sure that that data is not there? Credit card numbers, social security numbers, for example, are very important for that. And I think we also see a lot of folks with GDPR. How many folks here have, in your business, in your data, have the personal data of European Union subjects that your company works with? There's a few. So even though you're not based in the European Union, you're subject to GDPR because you're storing the personal data of EU subjects. And the fines are very stiff for that, and that enforcement begins in May. So that's another factor here to consider. And my whole career in IT, I've always seen the struggle between productivity and security. How do you make the two match? And so that's a real challenge for many organizations here. And then, you know, we've seen a lot of folks in healthcare. HIPAA is still very valid. My wife works for a healthcare payer, and there's discussion and rules and ensuring that they're compliant with HIPAA all the time. We're talking about patient data and patient records. And then we look at the software lifecycle and the disruptions. I mentioned, you know, a lot of, you know, I've been in organizations where there's a waterfall-based model, and we've moved into Agile, and are looking to continue to optimize and allow us to respond faster to changes in the environment. You're obviously seeing a lot more complexity now than before, going from monolithic apps all the way to generating microservices and APIs. And a number of people, as I mentioned earlier, using ZOS Connect. And so going to that services-based model. And then the cloud. Where do we deploy applications? Where do we deliver it to? Really looking at that model, that utility model. And it was interesting, even today, I talked to a hosting provider who actually purchases the ZOS hardware themselves, and then they provide LPARs to their clients. So they have it in their own data center, and they have clients that maybe their workload is small enough that they just need a single LPAR, and they'll provide that. There's a lot of different ways to use that utility model here. And then you really look at your control points, your organization, and the shift it has. How are you managing your organization? Are you optimized with the right people and the right teams to set up for this? You're going from focusing on IT to really looking at how can you be responsive to the business and really engage with them. And then looking from enterprise architecture, looking at how do you enable developers, the developers to make those changes to respond faster to the needs of the business. How do you optimize that? Okay.
I'm not sure I understood that.
Oh, so just looking at if you're making changes to your applications, whether it's on the main I think it's continuous. The DevOps, the development and operations is continuous. You're building a culture, and you're really making a shift. And this doesn't happen overnight. It takes time. It's gradual, and you have to really work through this as a team in terms of making sure that you can rapidly get things changed in your software and your applications. I think the other thing I would look at is how do you prevent errors? So again, keeping that quality in place. Can you automate your testing to be able to have that repetitive and fast and efficient? And then have that ability to respond quickly when there are issues that come up. Like we've shown, the world is complex now. We're in very complex environments. So you may have things running one way in the mainframe, and then you have web developers doing other things. You're trying to make things meet and work together. And so there's a lot of room for error there. And so responding to that and being able to make adjustments is really critical to that. I would also say that you look at coordination and collaboration. It's a dance, it's an orchestration in terms of when it comes to releases. Making sure that you have your cycles down and everybody understands what needs to be done and when, so that you're ready to go and have things released and ready for the business as you go forward.
What's the key aspect of doing cycles now? What's the key technique or key strategy to bring the cycles down?
Oh, in terms of the release cycles? I think it's just a lot of coordination and practice. Everybody's executing right when they're supposed to, identifying issues beforehand, whether it's all the way even back to the design of the changes you're making, and then looking at how that's implemented. It's all through the process, and it's really, to me, it's a cultural thing. You're really looking at how do I make this, everybody is rowing above the same direction and doing it quickly. And so you make decisions up front, which strategy do I take, which approach is going to be best, and that'll help as well. And then I think really it's the business, at the end of the day, it's all about the business. What does the business need? How can you help them prioritize and understand what they need to do? They want to be more, how can they be more efficient than where they're at today and do things that are safely? And you're taking a piecemeal approach. It's not a broad stroke. You're looking at specific pieces and going after that. So that's where looking at your applications and looking at taking a modular approach is very helpful. It allows you to go in and look at a specific place and make changes and adapt as you need. And then who's involved? So I think this is the other thing, is that the mainframe is, you have the opportunity to actually get in the game, and you don't have to wait for the coach to wave you in. You can actually get out in front yourselves and raise your hand and say, hey, we can help. We can do this. And so looking at who do you engage with, I think the line of business is critical. You also have other players to keep in mind as well, other application developers, cloud, whatever, mobile things you may have. Your business process folks, your application development managers, the architects, the security folks. Those are all key people that you need to engage. And then you need to make sure that all your developers are on board as well and have what they need to do so they can actually execute on what you're trying to accomplish. So, get engaged with everybody and be really clear about what the business needs, and that's where you want to keep the focus. I think in the keynote on Monday, she mentioned that you lose sight and lose the fight. And I think that's the thing, is really keep sight of what the business needs and what they have, and then make sure that you're raising your hand in terms of what you can do, what are the things you can offer to make this go forward. And then the call to action. So I think one, just continuing, when you go back home, start looking at your business. What are the issues they're facing? If you work for a public company, you can even go look at your annual report and look at the challenges there if you're not aware of them. See what's going on and what's an opportunity to fix those. What are the top priorities that I have in the business today? Where am I at? Understand that what's the mainframe's impact on success? You've identified issues and opportunities, challenges. What's the mainframe's role in making that successful? And then really looking at what strategy works for you. And then really look at your organization and your team, and make sure your processes are aligned. Start to improve your processes in terms of how your organization works together, and then everything through your development and your release cycles to do so. And then again, security and quality are something they're not add-ons, they're not nice to haves, they're something that you're doing throughout the process and throughout the life cycle. So with that, that ends the formal part. We'll do some questions and answers. Thank you again for coming. And here's how to reach out to me if you ever have any questions. Happy to talk. I love hearing what people are doing, what challenges are out there, how people are losing sleep, or if not, what are people finding that works, what hasn't worked. I'm always interested to hear about that. And that's all great stuff for me that helps me focus and plan on the business side of my own work on.
So we are recording this session, so I'd like to give you the microphone before you ask your question. So if you could just raise your hand so I can get the microphone to you.
So simple question, how are you using DevOps in your organization, your product manager? How are you using it for your development teams?
So we've definitely become more agile, so we're using, we have Scrum teams, and so we're trying to be, we historically are a company that was very much waterfall. And in my earlier days, we were doing big annual releases, and then maybe small maintenance releases. So I think we've tried to really look at how can we release, we're actually working in sprints, taking that agile approach, looking at grooming and managing our backlogs. We actually have improved our tooling for managing our backlogs as well, and so that others in the organization can see and understand what the priorities are at, where they're at. And then I think just we're always making sure the development organization has what they need. And we're sort of taking a bimodal approach too. We have work that we've identified that we need to do in the marketplace that it's integrations, it's new technologies, things, whether it's SAML, whether it's a list of specific functionality that customers have requested that we've planned into our process. And then we have more reactive things we need to do, whether there's enhancement requests that have an urgent need or defect issues, security vulnerabilities that pop. So we're trying to always manage the two, and we've tried to be more agile, taking a more agile approach, and that's been helping us. And we're still on that journey, so we're continuously trying to evolve and work at that. Yeah.
So a release date isn't carved. So a release date isn't carved in stone. If something hot comes in, you can adjust, kind of thing. Agile.
Yeah, we have ways to do that. We also have a team for some products. We have a team that actually is there to respond specifically to those, and so we have to make adjustments where we need to. And again, it's all at the end of the day, it's all about the business. So as a product manager, I'm keeping my eye on the business and what the business needs, and how we do that.
What's the key thing that you see in DevOps all the time that is critical that we should be aware of?
I think it's keeping everybody rowing the boat in the same direction. Everybody understands what the priority is and how to get there. I've been in situations in previous companies where it was very small and people had other there were competing priorities and they weren't being managed well, and that just, the boat doesn't go anywhere when you do that.
So where can we get the PowerPoint so beautifully
Sure,
done?
it should be on the shared website, but I'll also, I'm happy to take your business card and email you a copy as well.
Thank
You
you.
can also reach out to me at email as well,
Thank you.
multiple ways. Any other questions? How many of you have a digital transformation project going on right now? And how is everybody, is everyone happy the way it's going, or is it sort of still in progress, jury's still out, or? Not easy. Yeah, not easy, yeah. It's not simple. I think it's very iterative. You're looking at what are the small wins, what are the small pieces you can bite off now, and it's by no means a big bang.
I think that's an interesting question to ask, not to put you on the spot personally, but when everyone just thinks of that, it's a cultural change. So from the group here, learning from each other, what would be the top two challenges that you find yourself facing beyond obviously the benefits of doing it ultimately to successful?
Yeah, for us, it's for us the biggest challenge is we have a lot of pressure to remove functionality from the mainframe and put that on a distributed platform. So this is a big challenge for us because at the same time we want to modernize the application on the mainframe, but the pressure that we have to put it outside, it is the opposite, I think. And yeah.
There's actually, the Gartner Group just has started some focus around this whole modernization transformation process. Again, if you give us your card, I'll point you to a couple of research notes, one of which specifically states that you need to be business-led, and I think this is the point you made, which is that oftentimes the driver for business transformation is really about technology transformation, not digital transformation. And it's often the pressure is to reduce cost, to move from a mainframe to, and what Gartner has said is that that's not a winning strategy. And the reason is because there's a tendency to focus on the platform and the technology, not the business need ultimately. And in digital transformation with these end-tier applications, ultimately what you're focusing on is the business process. If you focus on the technology and that being sort of the end state, when you get to the business side of it, you're disjointed. And the big takeaway actually is that the goal of digital transformation is not cost savings or technology transformation. It's really the transforming of the business. So I think that was a very interesting point in it being business-led. And I think you mentioned also in the presentation, and Kevin has talked about this as well, which is the idea of leading with application understanding. What do you currently have today? How do you inventory that? And build on that as the baseline of what do we have? Because part of digital transformation is getting rid of something. And what you want to make sure you avoid is getting rid of something that you actually need downstream. So application understanding is the first step to a solid business transformation strategy. I don't know if you wanted to add to that, since you've got some experience in this area also.
So I think the big issue that we are encountering right now is that we've reached that point in our infrastructure where we just don't really have the ability to comprehend every moving part. And when we change something, the danger is that there'll be some unforeseen impact. And so we need to have technology now that, so we constantly talk about having feedback loops that tell us when we broke something. And what I'd like to posit is that we should have feed-forward loops that tell us when we've changed something, that tell people upstream from where we are, that I've changed a requirement that's going to require a database to be a database schema change, or I've changed a requirement that's going to change the WSDL contract that I use with some service. That we've got to now start informing the world ahead of us of that information, so that somebody ahead can say, hey, before you do another thing, let me tell you about why that's a great idea or why that's not a great idea. So we have those technologies in place, and so I think you're going to start hearing people talking about feed-forward loops now, much more as a much more proactive way of addressing some of the complexities, because we can't do digital transformation if we end up breaking something. We're just going to get a bad reputation for breaking something. And again, this is the key point that Russell's making, is that these are all about business initiatives. These are about solving business problems. And so they should be driven by the business. But we need to be able to feed into our systems, feed forward to database administrators, security experts, network administrators, to say, hey, look, here's a change that's coming. You need to be aware of that and give input on why that should be allowed or not. Another question?
It seems to me that it's a lot less complicated for newer organizations to employ the methodologies that we're talking about here today, but a lot of us work for a lot of older companies, right? And the senior management is embracing the digital transformation and the DevOps, right? But peppered in between, you have legacy folks, I guess I'll call them, who we've always run this library control system this way, which you're suggesting is not going, you know, the pundits, you know, that kind of thing. And even if they've gone over or around, they're secretly, you know, in the hallways going, oh, it's going to fail, that kind of thing. So it's a very difficult transformation to make, has been my experience in the last year or so as we modernize it. We've got these two whiz-bang, you know, Z14, Z13 and all that. But some of the programs we've got on it are 40 years old since they were compiled, you know. You know, and trying to get them to see the negativity and continuing to operate that way is a really hard sell. But I think if we keep at this long enough, I think we'll all be successful in the end. We have to be, otherwise we're not going to be in business anymore. Somebody else will take our place.
You're absolutely right. I always say that the problem getting old is we get sentimental. Yeah. It's more about what we think and what we feel versus what we actually have in front of us. And this application understanding concept, I think, is really a vital step, because what it does is it's a proof point to show what is already there. And what most organizations don't realize is what's already there, because the people who originally built it have since left. And all you have is this executable that just sort of sits there and it works, but nobody really knows what's going on. And the minute you try to change that, you have the potential for breaking it. So I think, you know, I'm not sure who asked the question, but, you know, key best practice has to start from a position of what value are we bringing to the game versus how we responding to someone else's definition of the problem. And defining it as a technology problem in search of a business solution, if I got that correctly, that's an apples to oranges type situation. It's bound to fail. I think we've hit the deadline actually at 2:30.
So please, would you join me in thanking Donovan and Russell? You will remember I said there would be a test at the end, and the answer to the test question is 22491. That is correct. You failed, okay. So please, while you're still comfortable and warm and dry in here, take a moment to get your Share app onto your glass, and do fill out an evaluation form, and like me, encourage Share to bring Donovan and Russell back next time in St. Louis, where you'll be able to meet them again in St. Louis. Okay, clearly that was just a joke for my own personal benefit. And while you're doing that, I want to leave you with a thought, which is today is 3/14. It is Pi Day. And I want to add a new word to your lexicon. The word is Pi-philology. Yep, P-I-P-H-I-L-ology. Pi-philology is the science of creating sentences where the number of letters in each of the words represents the digits of pi, like, can I have a small container of coffee, please? Can is 3, I is 1, have is 4, 3.14. Can I have a small container of coffee, please? 3.14159.266. I have to tell you that a programmer has written a 10,000-word novel called Are You Awake?, where the 10,000 words in the novel is pi to 10,000 digits, where each word is the next number of letters, which represents the next digit in pi to 10,000 places. A piece of Pi trivia for you today. Have a lovely afternoon.
Because we share. Because we share.